Looking for a compact powerhouse that handles everything from work to gaming and emulation? Well, the GMKtec K11 Mini PC delivers, but not without a few hiccups along the way.
In today's review, we're diving deep into its impressive specs, performance, and even open it up to see how easy it is to maintain. Stick around to see how we take this mini PC from great to next level. Welcome to Team Pandora.
Subscribble.
So what do we have here? It's another box from GMKtec. It's been sent to us for video review, and it's the K11. The GMKtec K11 uses the same tried and true case of the earlier M7 and K8+, but this time with RGB. It uses the 8945HS, which is an 8-core, 16-thread CPU that seems to be an overclocked version of the 8845HS that we saw in the K8+. Either way, it's going to be a very capable computer. It's currently on Amazon for $599, but if you want to find it cheaper, you can always check their website where they have the Barebones model. So if you want to add your own memory, storage and operating system yourself, you can do that. We've added the affiliate links down below at no added cost if you want to help out our channel. Ooh. Inside we get the K11 mini PC, and first impressions, yeah, looks pretty nice. Pulling this up we get a piece of cardboard with all the manual stuff in it. It details the usual such as specs, and yeah, it's a manual.
My blow-up girlfriend didn't need a manual.
Yeah, too much information. Let's move on to the next box. In here we get a 1.5 meter HDMI cable, another cable for the power, and a mount in case you want to attach the mini PC to the back of your monitor or under the desk out of the way. In the other box we get a power brick. It's branded GVE, and this is the same one that comes with the K8+. Outputs are 19 volts, 6.32 amps, at a maximum of 120 watts, and as it's a switching adapter, it'll work in any country. We also get a warranty card, and this one is, Let's take a closer look. As mentioned, this uses a similar case design to the K8+, and a big difference is this RGB fan. AMD stickers at the top right are a little lopsided, but outside that, this looks very nice. I think we should remove this thing.
Oh, it looks nicer now.
It certainly does, wow. So the system fan at the top pulls in air through this gap. But let's take a look at the front. We got the occulting port for external GPU, USB 4 Type-C for power delivery, DisplayPort and data, 2 sets of USB 3.2s, audio jack, and clicky button. Yeah, the power switch. On the right we have a nice set of air holes. And moving to the back is where all the action is. We have 2 sets of USB 2.0s, DisplayPort 2.1, HDMI 2.1, a nice pair of 2.5 gig LAN ports, another USB 4, and on the end, a DC in for power. Underneath all of that we have the air exhaust vents, and on the end, a Kensington lock.
Kensington?
Yep. On this side we've got more air holes, and there's more underneath, specifically for the CPU. We have some labels at either end, holes for the mount so we can attach it to stuff, and we have 4 rubber feet in each corner. These are at a decent height, so fresh air can easily get in to aid with cooling. Meow. It's about time for the size comparison. The K11 is much larger than the G5 at 4 times the size. It's a little larger than the G3+, which is similar in size to the Geekom A7. It's very slightly larger than the Beelink EQ13, but much taller. Here's the Ryzen Alloy 9, but maybe you'd prefer something a bit more relatable. Maybe an 8-bit DOTA controller, or a regular bendy banana. Or if you're from the UK, a teabag. The GMKtec K11 is 4 times the size of a Rooibos teabag, which I will have now. After connecting it to a display, speakers and only one keyboard, we can get cracking. And that RGB light looks fantastic. It's pretty quiet and stops turning when it needs to. First thing we see when powering on is the Windows setup screen. It takes no time at all to get through, and all we need to do here is select language, region, and then choose to opt out of all this garbage that Microsoft pushes our way. And then soon enough, we're in. So this comes with Windows 11 Pro, updated to 23H2, which is before all the Copilot BS came to play. All the specs check out, and we can see that Windows is not activated. To sort this, we can simply go online. But first, we should run a quick virus check with Windows Defender. The full scan came back clean, so now we can connect to the Wi-Fi and check again with other antivirus software. And both Avast and Malwarebytes gave us a green light, so we have a clean system. We can then run any updates we wish, such as updating Windows, and also the Ryzen driver software. Piece of cake. We can then go to ninite.com to download all the software we need. Don't worry, it's all free, we just need to check the boxes and let it do its thing. Then we can use Office to write our documents, or do math with spreadsheets, create works of art with Krita, an open source competitor to Photoshop,
Mamma mia, that is beautiful!
or even use it for professional video editing. As we have the horsepower, fast NVMe drive, and even AV1 encoding, DaVinci simply glides on the system. And of course, we can do shopping like Amazon. I know this is fake, but it looks delicious. Or video streaming. Here's Amazon Prime, Netflix, or even YouTube in 4K. Moving on to the benchmarks, we have good speeds from our storage, demonstrating that our NVMe is PCIe Gen 4. On this channel we have the best CPU scores to date, but the GPU seems slower than the 7940HS series. But then TimeSpy hits back and says that's a load of rubbish. But we can definitely see parallels to the 7940HS, especially in Cinebench, and the higher scores are probably due to better thermals on the K11. As for the Wi-Fi strength test, well, 67% is not great at all, average at best. But we did manage to connect our Bluetooth controller for some game tests. First up, Dave the Diver. And as expected, it ran swimmingly.
Baby shark, baby shark.
But if we move on to some 3D games, here's Minecraft Java running at 12 chunky chunks. We can raise it to 24, still with having decent performance. And here's Dota 2, tending to be best looking.
You know I will. Swiftly.
Of course we can't skip on Rocket League, and it gives a great frame rate throughout the whole match. Next up is Counter-Strike 2. At 1080p low settings, we get a very respectable 140 FPS. And we also gave some competitive bath salts a go. Oh yeah. Marvel Something or Other seems to be a popular game, right for testing. Running with FSR3 is definitely the way to go, but honestly, this game is much better to be run at 720p. And for a game that I like to play with the kids, here's Fortnite. The settings are at 1080p, high epic settings on the performance renderer, and as you can see, this runs very well. Next up is Tekken 8, and at 1080p medium settings, it performs very well. Then on the third round of the city stage, only a few frames are dropped. Still, it's very playable, and lower graphic modes are still on the table. Here's Microsoft, Spit, Flight Simulator 2024. At the default medium settings we're getting 25-26 FPS, and a flick on FSR, a bit better. And let's fly into the future with a bit of Cyberpunk 2077. At low settings 1080p it's not too bad, but if we turn on the frame gen, impressive. So the K11 can run games pretty well, but how's the BIOS? Well, it's not very nice to look at, but it definitely has enough chunk in it to play with. We get the usual TDP choice where we can choose between quiet at 35 watts, balanced at 54 watts, and performance mode which takes it out of the AMD spec at 65 watts. Personally I'm not a fan of pushing a CPU that hard, but I'm glad the choice is here. We can also toggle IPU, raise the shared GPU memory, which you should do if you're playing games, change fan profiles, and mess around with whatever Pluton is. If it's anything like Secure Boot, that's also here for any fans of Valorant. As for Linux, Here's Batocera. It boots up fine, and it's still our favourite front end for emulation. We can report that Batocera 41 finds the Wi-Fi, and we can connect to the local network. Using Bluetooth we could pair up our controller, and also play arcade games such as King of the Monsters. And if we wished, we could use shaders too. Of course, this can run later arcade games, but here's something better. Capcom vs SNK 2 on Naomi. Earlier systems like the Commodore Amiga run great too. Here's some Vroom. And a favourite that's very easy to run, Turrican 2. Fight or fight! Or if you want to push it, here's God of War on the PSP at a whopping 8 times native resolution. Or how about F-Zero GX on the GameCube at 6 times upscale? Runs it flawlessly. Moving to the higher end systems now, here's Wii U's answer to F-Zero. Tekken Tag Tournament 2, Wii U edition, where bigger doesn't always mean better. And now some PlayStation 3 with Outrun in the skies. Soul Calibur 5. And Ridge Racer 7. Moving on to the temps and fan noise now. At idle we sit at 35 degrees Celsius. It is fairly quiet, but you can hear it whine. Pulling 10 watts from the wall. If we run the grid auto spot benchmark, we're around 70 degrees Celsius, and the system runs a little louder. Sounding a bit like this. At around 86 watts. We then tried performance mode, and that raised the temperatures to 79 degrees Celsius, and we had a noisier 41 decibels. At just over 100 watts. In this case, the results show there's not much point in choosing performance mode over the balance setting, but if a game uses 100% of both CPU and GPU, you could see potential gains. So let's check the inside. So to open this up, it's pretty simple. We just twist here. There we go. And that's our lid off. Oh, this is translucency. We then need to remove 4 screws from the corners using a posi driver. And then this comes right off. Just be careful as the fan is still connected to the board. It's pretty tidy. We have the NVMe storage with a heatsink on the left, and in the centre another M2 slot for more storage, which is also capable of PCI Gen 4 speeds. On the right we have the DDR5 memory, but let's take a look at the storage. The sticker on the heatsink claims it's a Crucial something, and according to the back it's a P3 Plus M2. If you want to take off the heatsink, you just remove the rubber bands, and then nudge the heatsink from side to side, which should eventually give way. Crucial. Here's some more Crucial components, a DDR5 memory. There's also another header on the main board, and this is possibly for adding an extra fan. Checking the Wi-Fi module, it is indeed an Intel AX200, but if we want to get access to the CPU, we need to remove these 4 screws that are hidden in each corner. And the bottom can be easily removed. We can then unplug the CPU fan. There are 4 more screws to get rid of. Tape needs to be pulled back a little on both sides, and then you can get the heatsink out of the way. Oh, hello you. Let's see what's under here with a bit more screwing. Unscrewing.
I am John Luke.
In order not to ruin the components, we'll wiggle it from side to side to loosen the thermal grease. And then out it comes. So it doesn't look too bad, but let's see if we can make any gains from switching out thermal paste to our current cheap favourite. The, where is it? This one.
Ta-da!
Amesh. I know it's probably cringe, but I like to use a cotton earbud as a spreader, and it feels like a paintbrush. Once we have a thin layer sorted, we can put it all back together again, like Humpty Dumpty. So checking out idle temps and noise, it looks like we've actually made things worse, but I don't think the thermal paste is the reason why we're hearing that whine. So how about we have a play in the BIOS? We change fan speeds from this to this And this is what we got. Slightly higher temps at idle, but check this. Noise? What noise? And it also performs in-game. So what about the Wi-Fi? Well, I've had bad luck with the Intel X200 in the past, and we demonstrated in an earlier video that changing it out can improve Wi-Fi signals and speeds. So let's whack in this MediaTek RZ616, connect the antennas, and let's go. So from the original 67% that wouldn't even run the online speed test, it's now increased to 75% with numbers from the speed test online. If we wanted to improve it further, we could switch out the antenna, but yeah. Another thing we can do is sort out these wonky stickers, and the easiest way to do that is to heat them up, peel them off, and then set them straight. There we go. Almost perfect. It's about time for the pros and the cons. The GMKtec K11 has a lot going for it, and it's an absolute bargain if you can take into account what it can do. It's quiet, easy to maintain, and fast enough to run pretty much anything. If you need some extra pep, the Oculink port has you covered. As for the cons, the Wi-Fi woefully underperforms, and the Intel AX200 has done so every time we've seen it on the channel. BIOS settings at stock could do with some tweaking in regards to the fan noise, and I don't think it's an excuse for wonky stickers on one of the flagship models. As to which one to get between the K8 Plus and the K11, well, it solely depends on your needs and budget. You can grab the K8 Plus with 2TB NVMe for the same price as the K11 at the moment, but you'd miss out on the RGB and slightly faster clock speeds. In our opinion, the K8 Plus is better tuned out of the box, and there's little difference between the two. Both are decent, but if you want cheaper, get a K8, and if you want pretty, the K11. Summary.
Got a Mini PC, it's the GMKtec K11. Plays my games, fan lights up like heaven. Mobile rival CS2, no sweat. RGB fan, we're all set to flex. Wii-U, PS3, no bother. This little beast thinks it's all there like no other. Hear it hum, then it roars with might. But the Wi-Fi, mate, it's a total fright. Tiny beast, turn on the disco light. BIOS tweak to shut it up. K11's ready for a fight. Tiny.
If you enjoyed this video, please hit that like, or maybe to subscribe. We have many other videos, so why not check one out?
A nice handful.
This has been Image Chicken of Team Pandori, and I'll catch you on the next one. Ta-ra!